At this time, I would like to turn today's program over to Cherie Murphy. Cherie, you may now begin.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Webinar Wednesday. This is the second webinar of a series of calls designed to enhance your use of the Get With The Guidelines patient management tool. This call will cover basic reporting in the Get With The Guidelines stroke and heart failure patient management tools. Now, I don't want to discourage you from participating in today's call, but I do want to set your expectations relative to the content for today's call. So keep in mind this is called basic reporting, and this call is really designed for the new user. However, before you hang up, we do often find that even the veteran user can often pick up something new that they either did not realize was available or may be new to the patient management tool, as we do regularly update and enhance the technology. As was mentioned, this call is being recorded. And while I will be spending most of the time actually in the patient management tool demonstrating report generation, we have created a general outline of the features that we will be covering today. And again, to remind you, just simply click the icon at the top right. It looks like the 3 white pieces of paper, and you can get the PowerPoint slides for today's presentation, as we will not be staying in the PowerPoint to go through every slide. It serves more as an outline for the content to be covered. As I did mention, the patient management tool is periodically updated and enhanced. We do that twice a year. So, seeing as though I have this captive audience, I will remind you that the spring 2013 update is set to go live this Saturday, April 6th. There were several calls conducted in order to review what those updates would be for the stroke, heart failure, and resuscitation modules. And also in your handout icon, you can download the links to those recorded webinars. So I just want to urge you, if you do have any data entry that you need to complete or files that need to be completed, you may want to make it a priority to get those done by Saturday before there are any changes that may impact your data entry. So what we're going to look at today are the basics of reporting. First, I'll look at where to locate some of the static reports. That is, those reports that don't actually refresh in real time. These are reports that just get posted to your patient management tool by outcome at regular intervals, but they don't become updated to reflect any new data entry until the next report is posted on your PMT site. But we will spend the bulk of our time demonstrating report generation using the dynamic reports. That is, the reports that provide real-time results and will be up to date with the latest data entry changes. We will look at generating reports both to assess the quality of patient care given according to our predefined measures, as well as take a look at generating reports to review the quality of your data, or data quality, to ensure that your assessment of quality of care is correct. So when we do the demonstration portion, we'll look at some examples of why you may use different reports to give you some practical applications, both looking at quality of care as well as data quality. So I'm not actually going to go into the patient management tool to show you this. It's pretty straightforward. In the December patient management tool overview webinar, we pointed out some of the different report options. I'm not going to take time away from demonstrating running actual dynamic reports, but just want to point out where you can get the static reports that just get posted to your patient management tool, and all you have to do is open them. So on the community page underneath my report, hold on, let me just get back to our presentation here. So underneath the My Report section on your homepage, you will see some of these static reports that I am referring to. And again, these just get posted periodically, either every 6 months for your data quality reports, they're right here, or quarterly for your on-demand trend reports, which are going to be either PDF files or slides of your performance on certain measures that get posted periodically to the site. I encourage you after the call to take a look at these reports, and if you need any help interpreting them or using those, to just work with your regional or local QI director. In addition to being able to find these reports on your community page, you can also locate these static reports in your reports homepage. So you'll see here that I have the heart failure data quality report, as well as the stroke data quality report and a stroke mortality report that also gets posted for you. So now we're going to talk about what we're going to spend the bulk of today's call on, which is those dynamic reports, or those real-time reports. Today we're going to demonstrate using the configurable measure reports, the predefined measure reports, and the PMC patient list. I will mention using the audit report, which might be something that you are not familiar with, but I'm not actually going to demonstrate that report, but will mention how that could be helpful to you. We will also not be covering the heart failure readmission report or the stroke mortality report, anything that is unique to just the heart failure or just the stroke patient management tool, because what we want to focus on is demonstrating those functionalities that are consistent between both stroke and heart failure, and we can cover these in a future offering. So we have a tendency when we are running reports to just use the default settings that might appear when we first navigate from that report homepage into the configurable measure reports where we set up the parameters for the various reports that we're going to run. And those defaults are generally the recognition group for each module that you may be looking at in a bar chart format, with a monthly time interval. And sometimes we don't explore the other reporting options that can really help us to drill down into the data and also in some cases save us time as well. For this basic reporting session, we're only going to look at setting up reports for the time period, the measure, and the format. We'll also look at adding another report and saving reports. But what we won't be looking at are the filter options and display options. We will be looking at those in our next webinar Wednesday PMC call. So before we go into the patient management tool for the live demonstration and practical application, I just want to quickly review the options and functionalities that are available in the time period measure and format selection. So your time period. This is where you have the option to select what time range or period of time you would like to generate your report for. So the first thing that you need to choose is your time interval. The time period is going to define your start and stop date for the report. It's important to understanding your report results to know that the time period looks at the patient's discharge date to determine whether or not to include that patient in the report. So it's going to look at whether or not the patient's discharge date falls between your start and end date. So again, monthly is the default display. It's based on a calendar month, and it is going to display a data point for each month. The quarterly is going to be based on your calendar quarter. So quarter one is going to correspond to January through March and so on until the end of quarter four. This is going to display the data plot for each quarter. Annually is your 12-month time period grouped together. So it's going to be 12 months of time, but it's automatically going to aggregate those 12 months into one data point. The day range is something that you may not be aware of, but this actually allows you to choose a time interval that could be as small as 1 day, could be a week. You decide how long the time period is that you want to look at. The one thing that I want to point out about this report is that these range of days that you select is always going to be aggregated. You can't run a report for, say, a 7-day period of time and get 7 data points. If you choose a period of time that's 7 days, it's going to give you 1 data point for all of those 7 days aggregated together. So this can be helpful if you want to measure the impact of some sort of change that you may have implemented. You can just look at a very precise period of time where that process may have been implemented and see what impact it may have had on care. For all of these time intervals, there's also the aggregate checkbox. This allows you to group any range of time that you have selected into one single data point or graphic representation. So if you choose, say, January through April in a monthly time format, if you were to select the aggregate checkbox, then you would get 1 data point for January through April grouped together, and he'll demonstrate that when you get into the patient management tool. So those are your time periods that you have available to you: monthly, quarterly, annually, and then your daily. The next thing that you have to choose when setting up your report are the measures. The measures allow you to analyze your data by using predefined indicators of quality. The measures that are applicable to the module that you're working in are going to be present in the measures drop-down menu. We're not going to take time today to review each individual measure that may be useful to you. We will take some time in our next webinar to look at some lesser known or lesser used measures that could be helpful to you. But what I do want to just review quickly with you are the groups or types of measures that you do have available to you. The achievement measures for stroke and heart failure are the measures that are used for performance recognition. So those bronze, silver, and gold awards that you may either have or, if you're new, have heard of and are working towards getting. These measures are measures that are determined when the evidence for some sort of aspect of care is so strong that the failure to act on it reduces the likelihood of an optimal patient outcome. So usually these are our strongest level of evidence guidelines for whatever particular disease state we may be looking at, be it stroke or heart failure. Because these achievement measures are based on, the strongest evidence and those interventions that are going to result in optimum outcome for the patient, these measures are put in place as achievement measures to help speed the translation of that strong clinical evidence into practice. So, for instance, something that has been a change recently is the change from prescribing any beta blocker for the heart failure patient to prescribing an evidence-based beta blocker for heart failure, because the recommendation in the heart failure guidelines is for one of the 3 evidence-based beta blockers. So we've seen a lot of hospitals working toward the evidence-based beta blocker as opposed to just any beta blocker. Quality measures are used for that cost award recognition. These are additional measures that apply to aspects of care that are strongly supported by science, but may not be as universally indicated for the particular disease state as the achievement measures are. Then we go down to sort of your less strong measures, which are your reporting measures. These measures are put in place in order to help you to interpret results on achievement or quality measures by perhaps focusing on some intermediate process steps or subpopulations of patients, or they could be aspects of care that are sort of emerging and may not necessarily have the strongest level of evidence, but are things that are being studied and may be useful in the particular patient population that we're looking at. So, for example, again, another heart failure example. Cardiac resynchronization therapy is one of our quality measures. But in order to determine patient eligibility for CRT therapy, you need to have documentation of what the QRS duration is. So if this is something you'd like to focus on as an area for improvement, you need to have documentation of QRS for the measure of CRT therapy to provide an accurate result. So one of the reporting measures is QRS documentation. So it's sort of an intermediary step to getting to looking at CRT therapy. You then have your descriptive measures. And these are measures to help you understand sort of the characteristics of the patient population that you're looking at. So these are going to be things like age, gender, race, diagnosis, medical history. Sort of just a description of the population. Then you have composite and defect-free measures, looking at overall performance relating to generally the performance or achievement measures. Defect-free, looking at it from the patient level, so looking at how well your hospital did in providing all of the appropriate interventions to the individual patient. And again, we're generally looking at the achievement or performance measures there. Depending on the version of the patient management tool that you use, we also provide the ability to run the exact core measure algorithms for the various aspects of care. As you probably are aware, a lot of the aspects of care that we look at and get with the guidelines relative to the, say, achievement measures and some of the quality measures do overlap with aspects of care that the CMS and Joint Commission core measures look at, except that the exact specifications for the measures may vary slightly. So we do provide, depending on the module that you're working with and the version that you're working with, those exact core measure algorithms in your program. There are also 30-day follow-up measures or post-discharge measures if your hospital does use the post-discharge follow-up forms. We also have historic measures, which are measures that have been retired, but we keep active in the patient management tool, so you can look at your data relative to what the old standard may have been. And then we have your measure group. Sorry, I'm going to speak directly into the phone and take myself off of the headset. So just give me 1 second. Okay. So then we have our measure groups, which are our time savers. And these are selected groups of measures so that you don't have to choose each measure individually, but can run a report, say, on the 7 or 4 performance achievement measures without having to select them all individually. And we have various groups of measures to allow to save you time. We also have state or regional-based measures. So there may be a particular measure that a state may be looking at that would be unique to your patient management tool. And for stroke, we also have inpatient stroke measures. So within each of those groups exist a lot of individual measures that you can run. Then we have our format. The default is the bar chart, but we also have line control comparison and patient records. We're going to focus today on the bar chart and the patient records report, again, because this is looking at basic reporting. I do want to make you aware of the format options available, but given the fact that we only have an hour for today's call, we're going to focus on just looking at two of those formats. Report output we will go ahead and take a look at when we were actually in the patient management tool. And now we are going to go into the patient management tool to look at setting up some of the different parameters that we have talked about. So I am already logged into the patient management tool. Keep in mind as we go through this that this is a demo site, so this is not real hospital data, so it may look a little bit funny to you with regard to some of the responses and things, so just keep in mind that this is a demo site. So I'm going to start with a stroke example and give you a little scenario, and we're going to go in and run the reports relative to this scenario. So this is something that happens if you're new, we'll say, to the patient management tool. Your hospital may not be new to the patient management tool, so keep that in mind. So last year, your hospital did not qualify to renew your Gold Plus award for stroke. And so this year, your physician champion wants a quarterly status report relative to your performance for eligibility for the Achievement Award, the Gold or Silver or Bronze, and also the Plus Award, looking at the quality measures. So you are getting ready to run your status check for the physician champion of your program. So we're going to go ahead to the stroke report, and we're going to start off looking at the configurable measure report. This is where we can go in and set up a report for any parameters that we want. I'm going to try and be patient. Okay. So again, the first thing we need to select is our time period. Now, we are going to look at the first quarter of the year as our status report. But one of the things that I always suggest hospitals to do before you group any time period together into an aggregate, it's often a good idea to look at the monthly breakdown for a number of reasons. And as we generate the report, I will point out what some of those reasons may be. So even though I'm going to be looking at providing a quarterly aggregate report for performance, I'm going to keep my my time period at a monthly interval. And again, because this is a demo site, I'm going to choose my year as 2011, but you can pretend that we're looking at the first quarter of 2013. And again, I'm not going to aggregate it because I want to look at the individual months. Because I'm looking specifically for our status relative to the award, for my measure, I'm going to choose the Get With the Guidelines PAA, which is the Performance Achievement Set. So that's going to be one of those measure groups that's automatically going to select the 7 measures that are required for eligibility for the Bronze, Silver, or Gold Award. And then I also wanted to see my eligibility toward the Plus Award as well, which looks at the quality measures. So I can do that
do the achievement measures as well as the quality measures together in one report without having to run them separately. And that's where I'm going to use the add another report function. So what you'll see when I click that link is report number 2 displays below that, where I can choose, again, another measure and another format. So now I'm going to choose the group of the quality measures as opposed to having to select each of them individually. I'm going to choose the group of quality measures. And there's one more measure that I'm going to add. Whenever I'm running a report to look at my performance, I always like to run the diagnosis report, which is found underneath your descriptive measures. And the reason I like to run that is because it allows me to think critically about the measure results that I get for each of the measures. So if I know the total number of patients and what the diagnosis was for each of those patients, it helps me to understand the number of patients that may be represented in the denominator for the various measures. So I also want to know my total number of patients so that I can kind of think about whether or not the data looks correct or not. So like I said, I'm just going to run the bar chart for now because I just want to get a snapshot of my performance, and I'm going to generate the report. And now looking at it on a monthly basis, we can see an example of how that can be helpful in this first measure, is we can see if there were any sort of trend in improvement or trends for decline in our performance. Is there any specific, point in this aggregate group of time where my performance may have suffered? So this may pinpoint your quality improvement efforts toward January. Looks like something may have happened in January because in February and March our performance is really good. So it can help to kind of pinpoint where your review efforts may be needed. So I'm just going to scroll through here and take a look at my data. It definitely looks like we need to look at the January data for TPA. Just scrolling through here, everything else looks pretty good as we go through here. Sorry, I'm moving pretty quickly. The bars are giving me a good indication of where I may need to stop and take a closer look. So here's our time to IV thrombolytic therapy, which is one of our plus measures. Looks like we may need to take a closer look at this one too. This is looking at the percentage of patients who received IV TPA in 60 minutes. So 0 out of 4 in January, and then 1 out of 2 in March. So we'll probably want to take a closer look at that one. And again, as I continue to scroll through, TPA, we already know we need to take a closer look at that. And NIH looks pretty good. And then here's my diagnosis report. So it gives me the monthly breakdown, the total number of patients for each month, as well as the breakdown of each diagnosis. And now here is where, again, I say running the report for the individual months as opposed to grouping them together right off the bat can be helpful. And this can be a pretty quick step. What I notice here, or what stands out to me, is that in January I have a total of 101 patients. And then in February and March, 53 and 67. Now I understand that volumes can fluctuate, but the 101 to the 53 is almost double the volume. So I would ask a couple of questions here. One is, did we finish entering the data for February and March because it is so much lower? So your assessment of your quality of care is not going to be accurate if your data entry is not complete. So you would need to find that out. The other possibility is that maybe you changed the population of patients that you may have been entering from January to February. Maybe in January you were entering 100% of all cases and then started doing some sort of sampling in February. If you had grouped this 3-month time period together, you wouldn't know. You just get a report out of there's 200 and something patients, and you wouldn't know how the months were represented. So you could have 0 one month because it hasn't been entered yet. So this is always a good way to double check that, particularly if you're not the person who's entering the data, but you're going in and running reports. It's always a good idea to check on this. So we've got this nice report with our status, and we can do a couple of things. Generally, with this type of report, you probably just want to print it, and what that will do is it will generate this report that you see into a PDF document, which you can then either save to your desktop, and then you could email it as an attachment or print it, but you can archive it, or you can just open it and then be able to print it out. But you can see it gives us what we saw on the screen in a PDF format. So you can print that out and bring that to your physician champion and say, here's how we look. You can also export to Excel, but for this particular type of report, that may not necessarily be as helpful. Like I said, we were looking for a quarterly report, so you could also come back to your time interval now that you've looked at the monthly breakdown and either click Aggregate, which will group January through March together, or you could choose your quarterly report and do quarter 1. And again, I'm doing 2011 because that's the year for which I have data to look at. We don't actually need to aggregate this because we're doing it quarterly. That's the smallest grouping that it's going to give us, and generate that report. And again, same thing applies. You can print it and bring it to your physician champion. But before you bring that report to your physician champion, we've identified a couple of areas where we need to focus our attention. So you can look like a real superstar by not just bringing that bar chart report, but actually taking a look and seeing what may be going on with the TPA measures, because we both weren't giving TPA to all of our eligible patients according to the report we generated, nor were we giving TPA in a timely fashion. We weren't hitting that 60-minute mark. So it might be nice to be able to go armed with a bit more information about your performance in those particular measures. So what I would then do is, I don't need to run every measure again. We were doing really well in the other areas. So what I would do is I would just, for my measures, choose the ones that I want to take a closer look at. So the IV-TPA measure, as well as the quality measure of time to IV thrombolytic therapy. I don't really need the diagnosis report anymore. I've already got that. So you can go ahead and remove reports that you may have added simply by clicking the Remove link. Now, we already know what our aggregate performance is on these particular measures. So what I'm now going to do is change the format to the patient records report. And what this is going to do is this is going to give us a report that has a list of all of the patients that were discharged within the time period that we've selected. So we're still looking at quarter 1, 2011. Maximize my report. So you see that we have a list of all of the patients that were discharged in this time period for this measure. You'll also see that in the columns across the top, we have the actual patient ID, or who the patient is, whether or not the patient is included in the results. So is this patient included in the denominator or deemed eligible for this particular component of care? And then whether or not they're in the numerator or whether or not they received the appropriate care. These subsequent column headings correspond to the data elements that go into calculating the measure or that are in the measure algorithm. And then you'll see for each patient the response option that has been selected for each of those data elements. So what we want to look at here is we want to look at the patients who are identified as missing being counted in our numerator, or those patients who were not treated appropriately. So the good thing about this report is that it can also serve as sort of a simple Excel spreadsheet, in that if you select Show Filters, what it will do for certain columns is provide you the option to whittle down this list of patients to just the specific population that you're looking for. So we're looking for patients who were missed in the numerator or not treated appropriately. So we're going to filter for those patients who were no or not in the numerator. So then this is going to whittle down that list to these are the 3 patients for the first quarter whom were not treated with TPA who were deemed eligible. So if we look at our short measure, not description, but sentence of what this IV TPA arrived by 2 hour, treat by 3 hour is, it's going to be ischemic stroke who arrive at the hospital within 120 minutes and were treated with TPA within 180 minutes or 3 hours of less than well. So the cool thing about this report is that because it tells us the response options for each of the data elements that go into the measure, we can perhaps garner some information about our missed patients simply by looking at this patient records report. It looks like our first 2 misses were not treated with TPA. There's no documented contraindication or warning here. So they came within 2 hours. First one was in 1 hour and 10 minutes. Next one was in 1 hour and 20 minutes, but weren't treated. We can look at that a little bit further. This next patient here, you may wonder, oh, well, that patient was treated with TPA. Why does it say I didn't treat that patient appropriately? Well, if we take a look, remember this is patients arriving within 2 hours, treated by 3 hours. Yes, you treated the patient, but the patient was last known well at 1652 and didn't get IV TPA initiated until 2022. Which is beyond that 3 hour window. So that's why this patient is treated but not in our measure. So this can give us some information about why are we not performing well in this measure. Is it because we're not documenting contraindications, which would be the result of the first 2 patients, or is it because we're treating, but we're treating outside of the window? So it gives you a bit more information. You can also link into these records. You'll see the hand display when I go over the patient ID, and you can actually go into the record that you've created in the patient management tool to see if you've left yourself any notes or anything in here about why a patient may not have met a particular measure, or to take a look at some other information about this patient before you have to go back to the actual medical record and review this case again. You may be able to garner some more information. Maybe you've left yourself some comments in some of the comment sections around this particular patient. We could then go ahead and do the same thing for the time measures, is show our filters, filter for those patients who were not in the numerator, and we get our list, and we can either go into the patient's record in the patient management tool and see if there's any more information we can garner, or we may need to actually go back to the medical record and review what may have gone wrong with these particular patients. So you can go back to your stroke committee with not just this is, aggregate how we perform, but more of the why, the information behind it, and see if there are any common trends between all of these misses so that you can see if there's any sort of process change that you can implement in order to improve care. So since this is a report that you will be running on a regular basis, I'll also quickly demonstrate the saving a report option. So again, you can print that list of patients that were misses so that you could review the patient records or bring that list to somebody else to pull the records. You can print that report as well, just like we did the other ones. But I want to quickly demonstrate, since this would be a report that you're going to be running on a routine basis, I'm going to go back and choose my performance measure as a bar chart, because this is something we're going to be checking now, remember, frequently, my quality measures as a bar chart. And again, remember, I like to always include that diagnosis report as a sort of double check on my data entry. So I've got my 3 reports that I am going to be running on a regular basis. Let's scroll down to the bottom here, and you can see where you can save the report. All you have to do is select the measures that you want to run, the format that you want to run them in. We're not looking at it today, but you would also want to select your filter, display, and benchmarking options, because those things also get saved when you create the saved report. All you have to do is give it a name. So I'm going to call this my award status. And once you have all of those things selected, just save your report. It tells me award status has been saved. So now the next time I need to create this report to provide to my stroke committee or my stroke physician, I can save myself a little bit of time by, instead of going to my configurable measures, I'm going to go to my predefined measure report. And here it is, the award status report that I just created. I can click Show Details to see what parameters I've set up for this report. You can see my performance set quality measures diagnosis. You can change the time period for this report, so however you wanted to run this report. And then to generate it, all you have to do is click on the name of the report, and it will automatically generate this report for us. It's not going to come up with any data because I didn't change my time period here, but I just want to show you that it automatically generates all of those measures that we selected before. So the example that I gave may not necessarily be a super time saving, but for those hospitals that maybe are in New York State and have to run the New York State timing measures, the DOOR to MD, the DOOR to stroke team, et cetera, there is no measure group for those. So you could go into your configurable measures, build a report that includes all of those measures, and save it. And so every time you need to run that report, you don't have to go through the process of adding the report. You can just go to your predefined measures and select your, say, time targets and automatically generate the group of all of those timing measures. I'm going to give a quick example in heart failure. You will do the same thing in heart failure that you would do in stroke. The functionalities are exactly the same. So last year you qualified for the Silver Award, and now it's the end of the year, and you want to see if you qualify for the Gold Heart Failure Award. So again, I'm going to go to my configurable measure report. When we're looking at qualifying for the Gold Award, after the Silver Award, we need to have another year's worth of data that's at 85% or better compliance with the achievement measures set forth for heart failure. So I'm going to change my time interval to annual. I am looking at 2012, which is the year that just happened. I'm already default to the heart failure recognition group, but we want to see if, like our stroke colleagues, we also might qualify for this PLUS award because we've never gotten that before. So I'm going to choose the heart failure quality measures, and again, I'm going to run that diagnosis report so that I can check my data. Again, I'm doing this quickly, so I'm not going to run the monthly just because I want to demonstrate this very quickly. So I'm going to generate my report to see if we qualify for the award. Okay, so my AFib at discharge looks good. Oh, my evidence-based beta blocker, 6 out of 14. Probably want to take a closer look at that one. Measuring LV function looks good. My post-discharge appointment for heart failure patients, 4 out of 35. Going to want to take a closer look at that. And now we get into our quality measures. So these for the PLUS award. 0 out of 14, 2 out of 3, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 28. Not looking so good on these quality measures. I would think we were doing better on that. So, again, we're going to do the same thing. Instead of running the bar chart, and we know what we want to look at, we need to look at our evidence-based beta blocker. We need to look at our post-discharge appointment for heart failure. And you know what? We need to look at pretty much all of the quality measures. So I'm going to choose the quality measure group again as opposed to just 1 or 2. They all look like they could use some attention. So again, I'm going to change this to patient records all the way down and do that same process. I'm going to go ahead and generate this report. So again, you get the same thing. I want to look for my misses or my patients who aren't treated according to guidelines. I'm going to look for my no in the numerator. And again, let's see if we can garner anything from the data entry that was displayed here. So these are our patients who are not treated with an evidence-based beta blocker. And the majority of them look like they were given low pressure or metoprolol tartrate instead of metoprolol succinate, or toprol XL, which is the evidence-based beta blocker. So it sort of tells us why we're not meeting that evidence-based beta blocker measure, as it looks like low pressure is a common beta blocker that's being prescribed when we really need to be giving metoprolol succinate. So something that, it's not that you're not giving a beta blocker, it's that it's not an evidence-based beta blocker, and so we may need to look at those prescribing patterns. So now we can do the same thing, take a look at our post-discharge appointment. I'm going to filter for all those who did not. And many hospitals are currently working on this because it is new, and right now we're allowing the discharge instructions. But I would encourage you to take a close look at your process for scheduling follow-up appointments, because that grace period of allowing you to apply for an award with discharge instructions will go away. This is definitely something that you do want to take a look at. And if we look at all of our patients who were missed for this, it looks like we have an office visit documented for quite a few of these missed patients. But the problem is that in order to meet the numerator inclusion for this measure, you'll see up here underneath the name of the measure, you need to have a follow-up appointment with documented location, date, and time. And I would find it a little bit strange if patients were given an appointment to go see their doctor on February 6th without a time. I've never been given an appointment to go see my doctor on this date without a time. So maybe something you need to look at. Maybe for some reason they didn't enter in the time or didn't have the time. It's something that you know that, okay, an office visit was scheduled, but for some reason we don't have the time. Or maybe an office visit wasn't scheduled, and that's why you don't have a time. But something's funny there that you need to take a closer look at. So now let's take a look at these quality measures. So again, my aldosterone, I was 0 for 14. Let's take a look at these patients that I missed. Okay, so here's my aldosterone at discharge. I see a lot of blanks here. I see a lot of blanks in my contraindications as well. I'll save you looking at the rest of the report, but looking at all those blanks, I would guess that the reason we're not meeting this measure is because we haven't answered the question. So perhaps the problem is you're not answering the data elements relative to the quality measures. So that's why you're not qualifying for the PLUS Award. You may be providing this care very well, but you're not collecting the data, which is why you're not qualifying for the measure. And how I know that is I can see all these blanks. I could actually filter for all of these blanks and see all of the patients who are not in the numerator simply because we didn't answer the question. So that brings me to my next point, which is we can't assess the quality of patient care if the quality of our data is bad. So running this patient records report is another way that you can check not just for patients who may have been missed for a particular measure, but check to see that the result of your measure is not the result of poor data. Now, I mentioned this issue of blanks here. One of the ways to prevent having a lot of blanks impacting your data is by making sure you save your records as complete. And a way that you can run a quick report to see that your records are saved as complete and therefore will have lesser likelihood of poor data quality impacting your measure results is by running this PMT patient list. What this report allows you to do is to enter in any date range that you want. I'm going to look at the date range of the report that we just ran for our heart failure patients. So it was looking at the entire year of 2012, and hit submit. And what it's going to do is similar to that patient records report that we just looked at. It's going to give us a list of all of the patients entered within that time frame. It's going to give us some information about the record, some sort of administrative information, admission, discharge date, diagnosis, their discharge disposition. So you'll also notice this form status here. So this is going to let us know whether or not these records are saved as complete or incomplete. And just like our patient records report, I can show filters and filter to find my incomplete records. And the majority of my records are incomplete. So we would hope it would be the other way around, that there would only be 2 or 3 incomplete records. And what you can do from this is you can go into any record, again, by clicking on the patient ID. And when the record opens up, you can click on this pink errors box and see what may be missing that's preventing this record from being saved as complete. And actually, for this particular record, there are no what we call critical errors that would prevent me from saving the form as complete. It's just these warnings that are informational and will not prevent the form from being saved. So actually, it looks like I just forgot to check the complete box at the bottom on this record. So I can just hit complete and then resubmit. And now I've fixed that record, and when I regenerate this report, it would show up as being complete as opposed to incomplete. So that's a really important step in being able to use your data to get accurate results for your reports on quality of patient care. So I encourage you to build that into your process, is to look at this PMD patient list and make sure that your records are saved as complete. And if you currently intentionally don't save your records as complete because you don't want to fill in that information, realize that that could impact the accuracy of your reports, and you need to be really careful about, when you're saving a record, assessing that errors box and making sure that you've got everything entered that you want to be entered. And then additionally, using that patient records report, not just to look at patients who may have been missed in your numerator, but also using that to assess the accuracy of your data entry that may be impacting the measure results. And certainly we can look at, in our next call, perhaps looking at excluded patients and seeing whether or not there may be some errors in data entry. So we're at the 1 hour mark, and so I guess at this point we'll open it up for any questions.
At this time, if you would like to ask a question, please click the Q&A tab in the toolbar at the top of your console and click Ask to submit your question. To ask a question over the phone, please press star and the number 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Please note that you will hear a prompt and a request to record your name. Also, shortly after, you will see a survey appear on your screen. We do appreciate your feedback. Please note that you will need your registration confirmation number in order to complete the survey. This can be found in your original registration confirmation email. Please hold while we poll for questions. Operator, are there any questions on the line?
We have no questions over the phone.
I don't see any in the Q&A either.
Could we just read the instructions one more time for the survey?
A survey is now appearing on your screen. We do appreciate your feedback. Please note that you will need your registration confirmation number in order to complete the survey. This can be found in your original registration confirmation email.
Okay, seeing no questions, thank you for joining today's call. We appreciate your feedback in completing the survey before you exit the program today. And we will look forward to having those of you who participate in the stroke program join us next month, first Wednesday of the month, for our stroke webinar Wednesday, which will look at some of the reporting from the International Stroke Conference in Hawaii. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us today. This concludes today's web conference. You may now disconnect.